Let me read this one from Mike Mushrooms. These dirty American terrorists should just keep their promise and not expand Ukraine into NATO. Today's the one day, okay? We're doing Discord or ban. So come on in. There's a Discord link. Hello, how's it going, Mike?
Hello.
Hello, okay. So explain to me how this is all the fault of dirty American terrorists. It's just weird to say. I just find it weird to say that when we're talking about like promises to not expand NATO that were made not on paper, when Russia is violating their on paper pledge to not invade Ukraine after Ukraine gave up its nuclear arsenal in 1994 on the Budapest referendum. A memorandum, sorry, I think. What was it? Moratorium? I forget the words, but in Budapest.
I am American too.
Congratulations. Okay, so is my mic working? Like, can you hear me?
Yes. So America wanted to expand to NATO, right, with Ukraine?
So America wanted to? I mean, I would say they want to, but it depends. Like, Ukraine wanted to expand more, but yeah, I would say generally.
Mm-hmm. And the whole reason that Ukraine is mad is because during a meeting, America promised that no NATO expansion would happen towards Russia, correct?
True, but the Ukrainians are even more mad because they were promised in 1994, after they gave up their nuclear arsenal, that Russia would never invade them or infringe upon their territorial integrity. And the agreement was verbal and never officially like doctored. Like, it was never like written or anything like that.
But that 1994, I think 1994 happened well after the NATO expansion didn't want to happen.
You mean when the verbal agreement was made?
Yes.
Okay. And
that's the whole reason why Russia is
So-
wanting to invade Ukraine.
is because of the NATO expansion.
Yes, that's it. That's the only reason.
So if
From what I can see.
So would you tell me that the reason why it's our fault is because we dared to include nations like Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia in the NATO alliance, even though they joined of their own free will, and they wanted to join, just like the vast majority of Ukrainians want to join the European Union, and that has what caused the Euromaidan protests, and NATO. And therefore, the Ukrainian peoples and America got, they're the real fault because they wanted to join an alliance together. And they should have asked Russia first before joining a defensive alliance.
Well, no, because from what I can see is that they're trying to put Ukraine into NATO, so then they can say, since they're part of NATO, they get NATO weapons and NATO missile deterrent systems. So they're going to put all the
reason?
They're going to line up the border of Ukraine and Russia with missile, taking out turrets that can take out other missiles. Russia cannot have that happen. I'm just looking at it from a Russia perspective. Okay. That would be equal to if some country took over Canada and started putting fucking anti-missile systems.
That is actually exactly what Putin said. And my answer to that is, number one, I don't care. And number two,
you have to care.
Well, no, I don't. Because my problem is, number one, right? Ukraine has every reason in the world to be justifiably scared of a Russian invasion. And they probably would not have so much desire to join NATO if Russia wasn't as aggressive and corrupt within their political system. I mean, all you need to do is look at the Euromaidan protests, or the 2004 Orange Revolution, and you could see the toxic Russian state influence within Ukrainian politics that slowly pushed them away from their like system of alliances. And I mean, that was the whole Euromaidan protests. And so, if anything, I would say Russia being so toxic towards Ukraine, not only historically, but in recent political memory, and with its aggressive actions, and particularly Crimea, when it lied multiple times about what it was doing in Crimea with its little green men, and then lied multiple times about what it was doing in Donetsk and Donbass, that was their fault. They're the ones who did the invasion. They're the ones who have been the toxic force within Ukrainian politics. They have they have pushed the Ukrainian state, which has historically been like a, from even Putin's own words, we'll use Putin's own thing, that they're like brother sister states. That government pushed them away.
Well, I don't know any of that
Isn't
shit.
Vladimir Putin right now justifying the existence of NATO to not only Ukrainians, but this is just going to further justify in the minds of every Ukrainian that, hey, we should join NATO because look, they invaded Crimea, and then they annexed it with this fraudulent referendum, and now look at them again making up false flags about us, saying we're doing chemical weapons attacks, saying we're crossing into their territory. Now they're annexing. Well, not annexing.
Not,
They're declaring the independent states of these two things, which is one step along the road to possible annexation, but most certainly is the permanent removal of these two states from the Crimean, from the Ukrainian, from state. They're removing them from that and putting their own troops in that territory. They're invading Ukraine once again. Not after lying for years about their involvement with the rebels,
wouldn't it make
by the
sense
way.
for wouldn't it make sense for Russia to annex Crimea?
Would it make sense?
I mean, they invaded it. Wouldn't they just?
So you're saying because it matches Russian state interests, therefore it makes sense and is good? Or like, what's the... Like, there's a lot of things that make sense from an American political perspective. Like, I could make an argument for we should invade this country and take its resources because it helps us economically, right? That doesn't justify the action.
And I also heard like a lot of that. You're hearing like a lot of these. Oh, Ukraine's attacking and this and that and this and that. Oh, I heard a lot of people saying that could be U.S. propaganda trying to spike the war up a little faster.
Okay, and I saw somebody shit yesterday. That doesn't mean that I'm going to look at that like pile.
But it makes sense though. It makes more sense for the U.S.
Okay, do you have any evidence?
No evidence.
Okay, so then I don't care because
The evidence is
the
it
thing
makes
is,
more sense.
What? So you think it was the Americans placed APCs within Russian territory? Because that's the allegation from the Russian state, that American APC, that the Ukrainian APCs crossed into their territory and they then killed them. And if that is the case, that would mean that the Russians just killed, because they claim they killed five American troops. That makes, number one, how did they get the APC within Ukrainian territory and then Russian territory? Number two, why wouldn't there be a massive response at the death of 5 American soldiers? Number three, how was this not spotted or brought up by the Russians, who would love to say that an
That's
American
what I'm saying.
APC, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen though. So the Americans didn't do it. There's no evidence.
That's what I'm saying. You just answered it. You just like it makes more sense for that not to happen. Like Russia would have said something.
Okay,
Russia
so
didn't say anybody invaded.
Are you? I think I'm being gaslighting. Are you saying that the Russians? What are you trying to say here then? If you're not
use the the APC thing you're just talking about, that makes sense that it probably didn't happen if Russia has basically its entire border secured and they're not saying anything, and then the United States and Ukraine is saying just them two are saying.
The Russians are claiming, and I'm gonna walk you through this. The Russians are claiming that Ukrainian APCs crossed into Russian territory, and then the Russian military blew them to smithereens, and it was an attack on Russia, right? They've attacked Russia. They've also shelled Russia, right? They've made these claims. Why?
That's just weird. That's just weird.
Yes, I believe the Russians. Yes, I believe the Russians are lying. Yes.
I don't know. Why would Russia lie about that? That would just give them cause to attack.
Exactly. You're getting it now.
That's what I'm saying, but it would give them cause.
Yes,
They would have a
want
reason.
exactly.
They don't want
Yes,
them to
yes,
have a
they
reason.
do. They do want to. The Russians want to attack. That's the whole
No,
thing.
I know the Russians do, but America doesn't want them
Yeah, no,
to.
no, no. The Russians are claiming that Ukrainian APCs crossed into their territory, giving them partial justification to invade the nation of Ukraine in these two separatist regions. The Russians, most people would believe this, are most likely lying about the situation in order to get a justification to invade the Ukrainian state and get their troops in more territory. That
I
is
get it
what
now.
I believe
At
happened.
first you said United States and Ukraine were saying that. You're saying Russia said that?
I'm saying Russia said what? I'm saying yes, Russia. The Russians claimed.
Okay, I thought at first you
Yes.
said the United States and Ukraine said that. That's why.
Yes.
Well, anyways, my claim still stands. It's all America's fault while we're in this situation.
Okay.
100%.
You didn't address anything I said about the lies. Like I would say, lying about your troops being in within a region, that's pretty bad. I think that's a huge escalation. Possibly lying and providing no evidence or an independent investigation into the shelling or into the APCs or any of that, and just going along with that story and lying about the idea that the Ukrainians are about to invade this region and declaring and recognizing these independent. These are all lies that the Russian state is doing.
Well,
right?
that's fine. Russia can
And
lie
so that's
all
their. They can just like.
Yes, no, Russia can lie all they want up until the point until where it would matter if they're going to invade Ukraine or not.
But that's what they're lying about, that to matter. They're saying that Ukraine is going to invade this area in order to justify their invasion. Their lies do matter. That's what's happening here. They're lying in order to get a justification to invade.
Hey, well, man, maybe Russia is seeing the writing on the wall because up until this point, Russia had no problem really with Ukraine.
Can you give me one moment? Hey, I hear that Infrared wants to debate me on one condition. He can debate me on this if he accepts the fight, okay? With the preconditions he gave to Destiny. That's the whole $5,000, the whole thing. That's the only reason I talked to him today, okay? He accused me of stalking. And since he accused me of stalking, I don't want to like help him with like continue to create that narrative. And I'm not a stalker, so I don't want to engage with somebody if they believe I'm stalking them, So I just only under those circumstances. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. So the thing is that these lies do matter because they're lying in order to get a justification to invade. Let's say that I said, hey, Mexico just shot me, and then I go up and beat up Mexico. If I'm lying about Mexico shooting me, then that does matter in the situation where I just beat up Mexico, because that was my justification to go beat up Mexico. So that's why I'm saying that this is the fault, because they are lying every step of the way in order to justify their invasion. That's why I believe they're at fault in this situation. By the way, I don't even completely disagree with the idea that us giving that verbal guarantee could possibly like be a cause down the road. But it's like 90-10 in this situation, because all of the recent developments have 100% been basically Russia edging the situation along. And I think anybody pointing at anyone but Russia, the invading force in question, as the people at fault here, I think is just frankly delusional.
Well, if you took Russia and you put United States in their place, then you think like we think. You have to understand that they are protecting their borders.
So I would say that, let's say a good comparison to this would be, let's say we're treating Mexico like shit, right? We're fermenting corruption in the Mexican state. We're manipulating them in favor of American. Actually, okay, so let's say we have a relationship with Mexico, okay? Mexico would be, and it's complete right to say, okay?
I like Mexican ladies.
Mexico would be in complete right to say, like, you know what? Our relationship with America, not that beneficial. thought NAFTA was a good idea. I don't like NAFTA. Instead, I'm going to join a separate trade agreement. Instead, I'm going to join this. I'm going to join that. America could be like, hey, we have this historical relationship, Mexico, ever since the Texas Mexico war. We've been fighting and all that. Come on, Mexico, what the hell? If the Americans want to push them away through doing bad things to them, Mexico is in full right to say, I don't want to be friends with America anymore. China, new best friend. Woohoo. Now, I agree with you that I think writing some things into maybe some like agreements about like, hey, let's de-escalate or demilitarize the border regions between Ukraine and NATO and stuff like that. If you want to do that, I'm all in favor of that. But I think that the reason why that Ukrainians want to join NATO is because how they've been treated by the Russian state. There's the same reason why every single nation that borders, at least in like the Western European to like going towards the east, like they all want to be part of NATO. Poland, NATO. Estonia, NATO. Lithuania, NATO. Latvia, NATO. They all wanted to be part of NATO. Romania, NATO. Why?
Well, aren't those all small fucking like countries and shit that like don't have a military presence really? So they kind of need to join a big ass pack of military
Yeah,
countries.
you would say their militaries are weaker than the Russian military, right? You would
Oh
acknowledge,
yeah.
yeah. And so therefore they're like, damn, since our military is not as strong as the other military, and this country has a historic trend of treating us poorly, and a historic trend of doing bad things to us or invading us and taking us over, and like the whole Soviet Union thing just collapsed. Maybe I want to join this other alliance structure, right? To protect their interests. Like if you ask the Latvian people, it's not like, oh boy, we all want to go join the Russians. We all want to be in the Russian. It's not a thing, right? In Latvia, it's not really a super popular thing.
I don't even know where they're located, but Ukraine is a massively huge piece of land bordering Russia, and I know for one thing that they've been talking about is if Ukraine joins NATO, they're gonna move in NATO fucking missile deterrent system.
And you want to know what? Was Ukraine just about to join NATO tomorrow, or like was it about to happen? Was it gonna happen like today or tomorrow or the next day?
I don't know.
So, if there hasn't been an escalation in this situation, particularly at the moment, how is that America's fault? Who is escalating the situation but the person moving troops across the border?
Yeah, okay, he might be escalating it now.
Yeah, so
I mean,
it's his fault. This invasion is his fault. He's doing the invasion.
I guess.
If you invade a country, how can you say that it's not the person invading? It's their fault that there's an invasion. They're the one doing the invasion.
Yeah, of course.
You can try to justify the invasion, but the fault of the invasion is the Russians because they're doing it, right?
Well, was it the fault of the United States? I don't even know if I should even get into this. Was it the fault of the United States invading Germany and shit in World War II?
Was it the fault of the United States of invading? Yeah, and I would justify that.
Oh, come on. There was a resulting cause.
Wait. There's a reason why America invaded Germany. I just think the reason was good. Like, why are there American troops in Germany? It's the Americans. It's quote unquote fault of them. It's just the word fault has like a moral kind of like cloud over it. It makes it sound bad. But I would justify that invasion, just like I would justify the Soviet invasion of Germany during the late war period. But I don't think there's a justification for the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Wait, say that again. You don't think there's a
I don't think there is a valid or good justification for the Russian invasion of Ukraine right now. No, I don't. Because they're lying. All their justifications are lies.
I mean,
unless you wanted to get into like a deep conversation about Putin's like historical like Ukraine must be friendly to Russia. Ukraine must be our brothers. They're not allowed to leave the fold. He basically did a speech in large part justifying the idea that the Russian state must bring Ukraine to heel. It must be part of the Russian like brotherhood.
I mean, I don't really follow that. I'm just looking at Russia as what we would do if we were in Russian. I mean, it's just like A lot of people are trying to go against him. He's just trying to look out for his own shit.
Okay, but he's looking out for his own shit at the expense of an independent, sovereign people who want to go their own way.
I mean, yes and no.
For
Yes
example,
and no.
somebody could be like, you know what, King Henry, he's just, he's working in his own interests. Like, why can we really be angry at him, man? He's just hustling, right? He's just a hustler, right? I mean, if you look at this Pol Pot guy, right? I mean, this whole Cambodian thing has been going great for him, right? He's just
Ukraine?
hustling. He's just hustling, man. Like, yeah, for the people on this one side of it, yes, they want this to happen because it's good for them. But for the Ukrainians, it's not exactly a fair deal.
What, to join NATO?
No, for the Ukrainians, getting invaded by Russia is not really a good, like, fair deal, Not a good time.
I feel like Russia isn't really like actually trying to fucking
Are you
invade
real?
them,
Are you like a real person?
but he's basically trying to dissuade Ukraine from getting put into NATO because he does not want those missile deterrent
that's
systems on his
pretty
border.
shit,
That is
though.
the main reason.
It's a really shit reasoning, though, because if I wanted to tell somebody, hey, you should really not join that alliance structure, and I'm going to prove how you shouldn't join the other alliance structure by invading you, all you're going to do is make the people of that country want to join that alliance structure because you're justifying their want to join the alliance structure through your invasion of their nation.
I mean, it's like almost Ukraine will be part of NATO, but the Ukraine is just getting put into NATO to be a staging center for United States and the UK and everybody else who's anti-Russian to just like set up staging military equipment right in front of fucking Russia's door. I mean,
Let me ask you a question, though. And the thing is, I don't necessarily disagree with the idea that there are people who, of course, are going to want Ukraine and NATO for strategic positioning reasons. But from a Ukrainian perspective, why wouldn't they want to be part of NATO? They just lost Crimea in an invasion. They're now losing 2 more pieces of territory in an invasion by that same power on completely baseless accusations that they have not been able to substantiate, or they're just lying, obviously lying for the whole world to see. Why wouldn't the Ukrainian people want to join NATO or a military structure to protect them?
I tell you, I don't even think the Ukrainian people even give a shit about NATO. A lot of them are like pro-Russian.
That is the dumbest thing I think you've ever said. I'm telling you right now,
Like citizens of Ukraine are like
the
like
vast
they're on top of
majority,
like
the vast majority of Ukrainians want to join both the European Union and NATO. This is what the Euromaidan protests were about. It was about
I don't know.
about the leader of the country at the time not wanting to be part of the European Union and backing out of final stages of negotiation of that process. And they very much want to be integrated, the majority of Ukrainians, that is, with Europe and European systems more, like the European Union and NATO. This is just undeniable fact. Now, if you wanted to get into some regions of the country, yes. If you wanted to get into the east of the country, it's not as clear cut. There are people in the East who don't want to be part of NATO, who hold much deeper ties to Russia and want to be still part of the Russian systems. They still want to be more friendly with Russia and maybe be more friendly to Russian interests, right? But the majority of Ukrainians, not even a debate.
It's just weird. That's another weird thing. Like they do a study. Most citizens of the United States don't even know what NATO is, and yet all of Ukraine somehow
Well,
just
yeah, because
just
the
like
thing is, because their lives depend upon these questions, as is being shown right now, and you're laughing,
I'm laughing because
but
it's just like
people are dying.
I'm not laughing at people dying. I'm laughing at the fact that like oh,
But their lives do depend
studies
upon.
say that majority of citizens in
Well,
Ukraine want to join NATO. I don't
That's.
know.
I mean, this is just clear. This is not even something that most people deny. I don't even know what that is.
I just think most citizens don't even know what the fuck NATO is.
In Ukraine, when the biggest political issue right now is a giant Russian army at their door, you don't think the majority of Ukrainians know what NATO is. but they just poll in favor of it for lay random reasons.
I bet you a lot of Ukrainians are like, "What the fuck, the United States is doing, starting this shit."
I'm sure there are Ukrainians that have a different political perspective of the majority of Ukrainians.
I'm trying to find when the United States said that they wouldn't expand NATO.
I believe it was 1992 or 90,
That meeting that they had.
somewhere around there. But
But
I just think this is a ridiculous claim.
why can't does Russia and like China have like a NATO
There's
joint?
Russia has its own security alliances.
Yeah, so why can't Canada join the Russian security force and
Okay.
whoever else they were, North Korea, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And then Russia starts moving all of their main nuclear submarine and all of their missile deterrent systems right along the United States and Canadian border. That would be almost equivalent to what's happening.
So we moved. When did we move these nuclear submarines on the border? When did this happen?
Right when Canada said, "Hey, Russia,
No. I'm trying to find the equivalence here because you just. I was with you for the first half, and in the second half, you just said a bunch of shit that hasn't happened.
I know it probably because it won't. But it's just how Ukraine wants to be. The United States is pressuring Ukraine, giving him all these fairy tale fucking notions of why to join NATO so they can use it as a staging center. It's
a staging center for what? You think that NATO?
They want to.
Ukraine joins NATO, and then
the end game is to take over Russia. That's the end game.
Okay, so again, all of this to me, I understand like Russian security concerns. I understand that. But they're bringing about their own destruction when it comes to that from the international stage by continuing to push a nation state away. When it comes to your Canada scenario, Canada is a sovereign country. If it wants to join the Russian security alliances, it is allowed to under international law. It can, and it's free to do so at any time. It won't because it has no interests in that direction, but let's say it did. I would not be in favor of an American invasion of Canada if they said they might join the Russian alliance structure. I would find that grotesque. I would find that wrong. Now, you can get into more specifics about, let's say America, like Russia wanted to move nukes into Canada, like nukes in Canada to bomb. Then I'd be like, okay, this is more understanding about like what are we gonna do to stop this situation. Hell, I'm not even necessarily in favor of Ukraine joining NATO. But they 100% have the right to do it if they want.
Yeah, I'm not like against them joining it. I'm just saying that specifically when they join or if they join, that is specifically what they're going to use Ukraine as.
We're gonna put nukes in Ukraine.
We're gonna flood Ukraine with a bunch of fucking funding money, taxpayer money, and then we're gonna load them up with fucking military equipment.
When you join, number one, we're already sending them aid. Okay. Number two, so like it's a military alliance. Yes, we would probably like do some things to increase their security, but I think that's kind of justified considering they were just invaded. Like if you're getting invaded, who should buy guns morally out of like the world? I would say the top of that list of the people who have a moral justification to buy weapons is nations that are currently being invaded by other nations.
Russia's not currently invading Ukraine.
It is.
They're just tinkling. They're just standing on the edge of the line.
Okay, so you're saying they're standing on the edge of the line. What do you think? Okay, I've just brought something on screen. What are these Russian soldiers doing? Because they don't seem to be standing. They seem to be moving into Ukrainian territory.
Are they?
Yes.
I just see a bunch of slow-moving trucks going down the road.
That's the Russian military moving into Ukraine.
Okay.
That's an invasion. That's what most people would call an invasion. When you move your troops into another country without their permission to take over territory.
And they said they were. I mean, United States shouldn't have fucked with them, I guess. I don't know. I mean, United States said they were going to do all this military action shit. Let me tell you something. The United States ain't going to do a goddamn thing
Are
militarily
you a
against
real
Russia.
person? Are you like real?
Yes.
Is this a character you're playing, or are you real?
A real human being made up of hundreds of trillions of bacteria that are holding through an ionic bond very tightly to create my human form.
Okay. Wonderful. You have a nice day, okay?
Okay.
You can't even stop
Why'd you
yourself
ban
from
me
playing.
after?
Because you're fucking stupid.
What?
Because you're stupid. I need the average IQ of my community to be higher. I'm sorry. Because you're too, like, I'll forgive a little bit, but if you're too stupid, then you're gonna get banned. I'm sorry. I'll leave him unbanned, okay? And nobody bully him. Okay. Okay. Are we done with that interaction? We're done with that interaction. Ugh. If you can't handle that guy, Mahaz is going to mop you. Good point.